Hello, everybody. It's Andrea. This is going to be a sort of more freewheeling podcast without a lot of images and quotations. Part of it is because that's simply easier to do, and part of it is because I've been prepping today. I'm going to leave in a couple of weeks for quite a long trip. I'll be gone over 3 weeks. So you'll have to do without me. And I really don't know if I'll be checking in. I'll be traveling overseas. I'll be busy with family. And I'll be in places and doing activities where it won't be very difficult to keep up. So today was a busy day, and I'm not too inclined to spend a lot of time doing the picayune details of trying to get this all done. With that said, let me swing right into what I was going to talk about. The first thing, if you're watching the video, is a painting of the 1565, or was it 1556? 65 siege of Malta, which was a horrific siege that the Ottomans waged against Malta. And the brutality was unbelievable, and it was just awful, truly awful. And I chose it because it was an image. I couldn't ask ChatGPT to do an image of the brutality of Muslim warfare in the modern age, and I didn't want to do an actual picture, so this is what I did. And what brings this up is two battling narratives that are playing out right now, in the news right now. And my premise is, and I think it is a historically correct one and a factually correct one, that Islam is a sado-sexual religion and Judaism is not. October 7th, it's one of those great divides in time, a hinge in history. It's the same way 9/11 was a hinge in history. I think the assassination of JFK was a hinge in history. World War II and World War I, obviously. October 7 was when thousands of Arabs from the Gaza area invaded Israel. They went to areas where they had worked, where they had known people, and they slaughtered over 1,200 people, kidnapped several hundred more. And the slaughter was one of unspeakable brutality. Babies in the cribs, children, men, but it was especially targeted against women and girls. And we know this, not because of the stories of the living victims, because of the stories of the people who were in Gaza who might, for whatever reason, be lying. We know about it because of the forensic evidence left behind and because of the videos the perpetrators took themselves. We also know it because of what they did to the Yazidi women, where again, they were very proud. They left the evidence behind. They left the forensic evidence of women raped in such unspeakable ways that it's impossible even to talk about. I mean, without, it is a level of savagery that is completely unrelated to our modern world. It is Stone Age in its ferocity, beyond Stone Age. And they boast about it. Yeah, the Nazis at least had the sense to hide their crimes. They recorded them, but they weren't boasting about them to the world. But the Muslims boasted. They were proud. This was part of what they do. And just now a report was released, and the Daily Mail did some really good coverage of it, to my surprise. It was based on 10,000 hours spent examining the forensic evidence, the bodies left behind, the videos the perpetrators made, security cameras, everything. And what it showed was so stomach-churning. Women tortured in such unbelievably horrific ways before being raped, during the rape, after they were slaughtered. And this is typical for Muslim culture. In wars, Muslims go for the genitals. They go for sex. They castrate men. One of the things they like to do was castrate them and then leave the sexual organs in the dead men's mouths. They slice off women's breasts. They put do horrible things. I don't even want to talk about it. That's what they do. Meanwhile, Judaism is not a religion that is obsessed with sex. And yes, people will say, well, there are rabbis who were arrested for pedophilia, and there will always be bad people. In any group, there will be bad people. But what distinguished Judaism in the ancient world, in the pagan world, was that it was very prudish. Prudish clothing. People should be well covered. You don't uncover yourself. Your body is a gift from God and precious, and you don't flash it around. And sex is between a man and a woman within the confines of marriage for the purpose of marital joy and procreation. And this was in the pagan world, a world of ritual prostitution, regular prostitution, unleashed sex, nudity, homosexuality. Jews had a very, very different approach, and it was one, obviously, that Christianity picked up. The Christian world, the Jewish world, are sexually puritanical. Now, we don't have to go to the extremes the Puritans did, although in Puritan America, a lot of women were already pregnant when they got married. But you got married, you had your children in wedlock. It is a moral principle that you are not sexually promiscuous or sexually violent. And Jews historically have not been rapists. All the libel aside, it is not a Jewish cultural crime. Rape is a Muslim cultural crime. It is an act of war. It is an act of power. We know that in the Iranian prisons, because virgins cannot get to paradise, unwed virgins cannot get to paradise, women are routinely raped before they are executed to deny them paradise. I hope that the women being raped realize that theirs is a false faith and that they're not going to get to paradise because of being Muslim. They must hope that they get to paradise because they were good people under any religious standards. Why this is an issue now, though, isn't just because Israel released this report. It's because either yesterday or the day before yesterday, Nicholas Kristof, the New York Times, published a purported report he did, relying on one person, claiming that Palestinians in Israeli prisons are routinely raped by German shepherds trained in rape. This is not a reality. This is a psychosexual fantasy of a very sick people. This is projection. And yet the New York Times published it as if it were real. And Nicholas Kristof's defense is, well, he told me and I believed him. The fact that he was the narrator with Hamas, that everybody involved in this was Hamas, that Hamas has been waging a very successful propaganda war against Israel that is completely belied by the evidence. None of it mattered. The New York Times went ahead and published what is one of the worst blood libels in modern history. It's right up there with the protocols of the Elders of Zion, which the Tsar's secret police, we now know, absolutely created. It is a sick and disgusting thing. Islam is sado-sexual. Islam is built around the subordination and sexual abuse of women. Any quote-unquote religion that has as a paradise the fact that men will get to rape virgins in heaven is a sick religion. Any religion that makes women prisoners and sex slaves is a sick religion. Any quote-unquote religion that is built around subordinating women and having sex with them, sick religion. It's not a religion, it is a cult, and it is awful. After 9/11, a very dear friend of mine, brilliant man, actually studied with Milton Friedman, which is what made him conservative back in the 50s. He told me that the whole war Islam has with the West, it's not just about conquest, which is built into their cult, but it's also that they are determined to control women, and the West does not control its women. And so the Muslims are going to do that. I mean, when you think that the Muslim Brotherhood got started because its founder, I think he was in a Wyoming dance hall in the 1940s and was shocked by the licentiousness of the women. If you understand this core feature of the Islamic cult, it goes a long way to explaining everything. And it also tells you that to the extent Islam supports leftism now, and leftism is all about licentious sexuality, the paganism of homosexuality, unfettered sex, nudity, you know that the Muslims are just waiting at the end of the day to dispose of those people. They're useful now. Taqiyya says you go along with it, you dissimulate, you pretend to be one with them, you support the abortion and the free love and all this and the transgender and the LGBT. And when they are the last two standing, the leftists and the Muslims, the leftists are going to be really, really surprised at what's coming. Anyway, that's my take. I'm sticking with it. Next topic is a picture of Trump astride the world. And the question is, are we winning or losing in Iran and China? The narrative from the left is unrelenting. We are losing in both places. This is the first time in the history of America where a major political party during a time of war has been rooting for the enemy. And I will remind all of you, I keep saying it, this is the enemy. This is a country that has been in a nonstop, openly declared war against America since 1979. It has engaged in acts of war against us. It's kidnapped our people. It's blown up our people. It's aided our enemy, Iraq, in a time of hot war. It has repeatedly acted as if it is in a war against us, and we've pretended it isn't. But Trump is correct. Once it has nuclear weapons, the pretense is over and the world has changed forever. Israel will be erased. They've joked about Israel being a one-bomb country. They've repeatedly said they intend to destroy it. They've said they intend to destroy Iranians. The mullahs have said they will destroy America. And we know that the Iranians have a mid-range ballistic missile capacity and are very close to being fully nuclear, at which point the entirety of Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, everything is under the umbrella of a nuclear Iran. It had to be taken out. Trump had the political courage to do so. So the Democrats want him to lose. The Democrats want the mullahs to win. The Democrats want the mullahs who rape women in prison to deny them paradise, who slaughtered 42,000 of their own people just in January and February, who foment terrorism all over the world, who are genocidally inclined towards Christians and Jews. Democrats want them to win. And that's what they keep saying in the media. And I follow a Facebook site that is very, very hard left, unbelievably hard left. And the relentless drumbeat is that America will lose. America deserves to lose. There's been added to it, because Trump is now in China talking to Xi, that we're also losing vis-a-vis China, that we've weakened ourselves, that China is now the dominant power in Iran because something, 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 and China, China, China. Wrong across the board. It's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. I've talked a lot about what's going on in Iran in my writing and in my podcasts. We have wiped them out militarily for the most part. They have no navy. They have no air force. It's unclear whether they have a standing army. They still have things. They're not completely destroyed. It's very rare to completely wipe out an enemy military, but they're not in good shape. And it will take them a long time to regroup and become a fighting force again. Maybe years. We've taken out their nuclear enrichment sites. They're gone. They've admitted that a lot of their enriched uranium they can't get to, or their uranium stockpiles, their fissile material, or is it plutonium? Anyway, militarily they're a spent force. We've erased their leadership politically, militarily. And now Trump has an incredible economic vice on them. America can manage without their oil. We've got our own oil. and we can supply us and, along with other oil producing countries, the rest of the world. And yes, it is getting expensive, but this is a slow squeeze on Iran that does not put American lives at risk and does not cost the American military materials, supplies, weapons. It is the perfect way to wage war, but Americans are impatient and the media keeps saying we're losing. The midterms are coming up, so the big question is, how long can Trump hold out? I have faith in Trump. Trump doesn't like hot wars. Trump likes economic wars, and he is in the catbird seat right now. What about China? Well, I've been writing for years that China has massive systemic problems. China is no longer a country of 1.3 billion or 1.6 billion. Thanks to its no-child policy, it's almost certainly below a billion people. Now, that's still a lot of people if it has, say, 900 million. We're only 340 million, but it is a staggering decline in everybody's expectations, including China's own expectations about itself. It is demographically weaker than it's been, and because of its one-child policy, it is continuing to shrink. There are not enough women. You always need to have more girl babies born than boys. The reality is that one man can seed a population, one woman cannot. It's also an aging population. We are too. That's a problem, especially with our entitlements. Although my suspicion is that a lot of our entitlements simply vanished into massive amounts of fraud. The corruption is unbelievable. Somalia is living on my Medicare. That's the way I see it. And the amount of entitlement abuse is so staggering, it probably swallows up the amount of entitlements to which working Americans who have paid in their entire lives are actually entitled. Be that as it may, China has a bigger problem because not only is its population aging fast and there are not enough young people to support it, it's got a huge male population. Surplus male populations are dangerous because they have male energy that has to go somewhere. They also have a very weak economy, no matter what they say. The Belt and Road Initiative, which was going to give China water ports, airports, infrastructure control across the third world and even into poorer countries like Europe, has collapsed. In large part, and this is what I've been saying for years, is because everything China does is crap. Now, I don't know if it was that way before communism. I don't know if China was a meticulous, exquisite culture. But certainly, everything China does is garbage. Just go to Walmart and Home Depot. You buy something from China, it will fall apart soon. For a lot of things, it doesn't matter. We buy cheap things. We're a disposable culture. But you can't run a country on things that are garbage, on filth. And China, I've been to China, admittedly, only in Beijing. Haven't traveled all over. When you get away from the tourist sections, filthy. It's true, I grew up in a very Asian city. Filthy. They're not like the Japanese and the Koreans. It's a dirty culture. So you have everything made poorly and it's dirty, and they have no innovation because there are no incentives for innovation. So everything they have is stolen. They might build on stolen technology, but they cannot be creative. Very weak culture that way. It's also almost a quarter of the, my dog's snoring like crazy, almost a quarter of the economy was affected by their real estate collapse. They had a 2008 on steroids, and it severely damaged the economy. The economy is fake anyway because the government has been propping it up for years. True socialism, even though it's now a mercantile economy where it engages in the market, to the extent it was able to undercut American industry, part of that was because it used slave labor and because it used cheap labor. I mean, Chinese people were paid less than we, but a lot of it was also because the government kept subsidizing. Well, if you have people who are poor and the population is shrinking and aging, your subsidies are going to dry up. The military is corrupt. That's why Xi had to do all those purges. And now Trump has put an economic vice on China too, because Trump loves to use economic cudgels. He did the tariffs. Then he shut down Venezuelan oil going to China, which was a good oil for China, the way China was structured. Also, China got it at a massive discount. So China had to go out in the free market, which is very expensive. And now he's shut down Iranian oil, and Iran has shut down the Gulf. So China's having problems getting to its other markets. And China, unlike Europe and unlike the rest of Asia, can't come to America for oil. So it'll go to Russia, it'll go to Canada. Neither of them is going to give it a discount. So China is in a very weak position. It doesn't mean it's not dangerous. There is nothing more dangerous than a ferocious animal that is under attack and feeling threatened. China may lash out in the most horrible ways imaginable. Having said that, Trump is very clever, and Trump understands that Xi needs to save face. Trump is not someone who, with an opponent like Xi, will grind his face in the dust. He's willing to do so with the mullahs up to a point, but even then, when he's negotiating with them, he always says nice things. And Democrats never understood that with Trump's relationship with Putin. Trump does not insult people during negotiations. It is counterproductive. He understands that part of what goes on in a negotiation is ego. People need to walk out feeling they got something, and that their integrity is intact, that they've retained their honor. And Trump understands that. So no matter how nicely he talks about Xi, it doesn't mean he's going to lie down and let Xi walk all over him. But he will do something to ensure that whatever agreement they reach, Xi can turn to his people and do so honorably. Trump's smart that way. I'm really plowing through. I'm tired and I don't want to waste your time or my time. So next topic is redistricting in South Carolina. I live in South Carolina. I'm in District 1. Nancy Mace is my representative. I'm always ambivalent about her. She's an incredible fighter, but I've noticed that she changes principles without explaining why. I will take a week to tell you exactly why my principles changed from being a San Francisco Democrat to a South Carolina hardcore conservative. I'll tell you chapter and verse. She doesn't explain, and that always makes me worried. I live right next door to Jim Clyburn's district. If you are looking at a map of South Carolina, it's a funny shaped state. It's almost like a fan. So the southernmost point is tiny, and then as it heads north, it fans out east and west. And District 6 was created in 1992 to be the Black Civil Rights DEI district so that Blacks could be represented. As if Blacks have unique concerns other than what all American concerns should be. American concerns should be national security, a strong economy, equal rights under the law, equal dignity under the law, good educations for their children. There shouldn't be Black districts where they're treated like separate people. If you're going to do that, then we need white districts and Asian districts and Jewish districts, and the white districts needs to be broken up in, and Hispanic districts. And I think we should have special Somali districts because some Blacks are Christian and some are Muslim. And then we should have Muslim districts, and we should have, Polish and Italian districts. I mean, this is insane. People should have shared interests and maybe different ideas about how to reach them, which was how America used to be. Should you have more or less government for national security? Should you have more or less government for education? Should education be this way or that way? But now you have Black separatism and whites are evil. You can't have a district drawn that way. Anyway, I live next door to the Black district drawn for Jim Clyburn. And if you're looking at the map, it is a ginormous and illogical district. It snakes from the southwest part of the state almost all the way up to the northeast part of the state. It's not natural. It's an unnatural district, as all these Black districts are. So it cries out for redistricting. And the headline today was that Republicans aren't that enthusiastic about redistricting. And my first reaction, and this shows how you have to be careful, was, oh, they need to be primaried, and who are these people? And they're not, is it one of my representatives doing that? And yada, 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 yada. I read the article. They are worried that what will happen is if they divvy up District 6 into the other districts, they will lose safe Republican seats. Right now, the state is primarily Republican. And it's funny, if you look at the districts over time, in 1988, it was primarily Democrat. But as the Democrats went crazy and Southerners became engaged in the free market and gave over their racism and stopped being crazy Confederates, they became Republicans. That was where the big switch was. They became free market, colorblind people and joined the Republican Party. Anyway, what they're worried about is losing safe Republican seats and not necessarily winning a Republican seat in the rejiggered districts. And that's a real concern, because what they're looking to is that Democrats, look at Gavin Newsom calling us a confederacy and, all this kind of stuff. Democrats are firing up people. And what they're worried is that in November, the energy will be with the very, very angry radical people, and they may shift districts that are safe Republican, but have a lot of passive voters who think, I don't need to vote. It's going to be the Republican who wins, and it might not be the Republican. So I think they're thinking, we got 6 out of 7 districts. Let's not rock the boat right before a pivotal election. Why don't we do that after the election and give people time to get used to the new system? Is this a good idea? I don't know. But it's not a stupid idea, and it deserves to be treated with respect rather than everybody going off half-cocked and saying, cowards, and they need to be destroyed. So, last point is kind of off the beaten path. I have a lifelong friend who got into drugs, and she and I have maintained our friendship, but through her, I get an insight into a world that my middle-class world doesn't encompass. And this is why I knew that Obamacare would be a total fail, because I knew through my friend that people in this substratum world don't have middle-class concerns. They don't care about maintaining their health, and they're not worried about losing their home and their money and their savings to healthcare, because they get it all from the government anyway. Their primary care doctor is the ER. The ER can't bill them because they have no money. So Obamacare meant nothing to them. Obamacare simply was a wealth transfer, mostly to insurance companies and government workers. And it raised our rates, and it gave insurance to a whole bunch of people who had no interest in it to begin with. But my friend told me an interesting story. I've known about this for a while. One member of her circle was a very serious drug addict and living on the streets. In terrible, terrible shape, almost died several times. And this person is now on methadone, which I looked it up. So methadone is an opiate, but it's a very slow acting opiate, so you don't get the highs that you get from, say, heroin. The thing about methadone is that it's still an opiate, so you still go through horrific withdrawal. So people who are on methadone don't want to get off it. But the great thing about methadone is that you can function on it. It goes to the same receptors. You're not going to be high functioning. You're not going to be a hard charging lawyer. I don't know if you can drive a car, but you can live a life. You can live a functional life because you don't have the highs of heroin, and heroin doesn't work anymore because your receptors are already filled with methadone. It's an interesting drug, and it speaks to the importance of giving treatment to serious addicts. They can be treated, at least if they're willing to take a look at their lives and say, yeah, the highs of heroin are great, but scrambling on the street and having the flesh rot off my body and eating out of garbage cans and starving and being engaged in crime and if I'm a woman, getting raped, maybe it's not worth it. The methadone at least will make me feel normal. But this person is now having to return to the place where this person was living on the streets, because this person has to appear before a court for a crime committed back then. I'm trying not to give away any personal information, obviously. This person has been clean for over a year, and this person is very, very worried that when being called to account for this crime, the person will be sent to jail and might get an interruption in the methadone, in which case the person will have to go through withdrawal. I was thinking about it. This person is living a clean life now. Punishment of this person would indeed be pointless, because it would plunge this person into a drug culture again, the drug culture of prison. So I'm very ambivalent about that. Nevertheless, our society is built too much around damaged people, and that is a product of leftism. We used to have a very hard society that had no quarter for damaged people. And by damaged, I mean people who grew up in circumstances in which it's no surprise that they turned to being bottom feeders, drugs, low-grade crime, even insanity. I mean, again, I know from my friend's circle, they grew up in, most of them grew up in unspeakable circumstances. Very few of them came from nice middle-class homes, although ironically, my friend did, which is how I ended up knowing that person. But most of them came from homes of violence, alcohol and drug abuse, abandonment, rape. And the funny thing is, the ones who came from the worst backgrounds and were the most damaged are the ones who hit rock bottom. And ironically, some of them stayed there, but some of them, when they hit rock bottom, bounced. And bouncing usually involved finding God and cleaning up. So, but you can't build a society around damaged people. You can't look at criminals. You can't look at the revolving door of crime. The person in New York who killed a retired school teacher by pushing him on the subway track, and the woman who had been pushed before said, well, you know, I kind of felt guilty about putting another black man in prison, so I didn't push to have him tried. And now he's killed someone. You can't have a society where you have endless compassion for the damaged people. What you can do is put them, in fact, as Spencer Pratt said of the homeless, either get help or go to prison. You put them in prison. In prison, they have a choice, if they are drug abusers, of going on into treatment. And then they have to complete treatment or complete their prison term, whichever comes later. And then if they're clean, they can be released because we've made of them a good bet. If they're mentally ill, they need to go into mental health treatment. And that may be forever. Because what we're seeing is, and I've known this forever living in San Francisco, because the ACLU pushed to get all the insane people out of the insane asylums, which admittedly were terribly abusive places, but it was a case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So I grew up in a city where every time I went to work or to visit clients, I was walking through what now other people are seeing in their cities, which is filth and people lying in the gutters and lying in the doorways. And I always knew that no civilized society treats those among it who cannot help themselves, and genuinely insane people cannot help themselves. The problem is, if they're going into prison because they have committed crimes, you need pathways. And if they're going into a clinic or a facility because they're paranoid schizophrenic, can they ever come out? I don't know. But we have to police those who police them so that they do not become Victorian horror stories. But again, the one thing I know is you can't build your society around them. You can't build your criminal justice system on endless mercy for people who are so destructive and destroyed. However, our current system, which treats just hardcore recidivist criminals and the mentally ill and the drug addicted all in the same way, is not working and needs to be fixed. And I think people would be less like that stupid woman who let a hardcore crazy criminal kill someone if they felt that people who are genuinely ill could get treatment while in prison. And I do believe that states that have been experimenting with this approach have actually discovered that it works pretty well. Prison is for evil people. Substance abuse clinics are for, I guess, stupid people or unfortunate people or people from unspeakable home lives. And insane asylums are for the insane. But the reality is that none of them should be on the streets terrorizing society. And on that note, I see that I've gone 35 minutes, which is pretty good for me. I will say goodbye and thank you for listening. I'll probably be able to do one, maybe two of these podcasts before I leave, and then there'll be a 3 to 4 week silence. And I'm sorry about that, but as I said, this is an extended trip, and I'm both excited about it because I'll see people very, very dear to me, and dreading it because I really hate to travel. And I'm running around like a chicken without a head trying to get everything ready so the travel portion is as easy for me as possible. Anyway, thank you again for listening. Always appreciate it. Until next time.